All right. Larry H. Gardner, voiceofradio.com, headlines and headaches. On here on Friday, October 26, 2017, with council candidate for the city of Cleveland in Cleveland's Ward 2, Kevin Bishop, from his headquarters here for his campaign headquarters, doing a remote interview that will last for approximately 15 to 20 minutes so we can get to his campaign trail. Kevin, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, Larry.
No problem. How's the campaign going?
Actually, the campaign is going great. We started this campaign over 6 months ago. We've been campaigning on a daily basis. We've been walking. We've been knocking on doors. We've been passing out literatures, putting up signs, talking to residents, attending meetings. We've been doing the whole 9 yards, and actually, it's going great.
Okay. So the question is that why do you want to run for Ward 2?
Well, Ward 2 is a place where I grew up, and I've always had a special place in my heart for where you grow up. At least I have. So over the years, I've watched my area go through its changes and challenges. Some for the good, but a lot of things on the downside. So instead of being one of those guys who say, well, somebody sure ought to do something about this place, and somebody sure ought to do something and turn this place around and put some programs in place so we can have stuff in our community. Instead of being one of those guys who actually look for others to do it, I am taking upon myself, rolling up my sleeves, and I want to get my hands dirty. I want to bring the community together, go out in the community, bring in people that can help us get this community together and turn this place around.
Okay. So your background experience, could you elaborate on what you've been doing before you decided to run for city council?
Well, I've had experience both in the business world and in the corporate world. I've worked for Nestle for 17 years. I've also had my own company for the last 15 years. I have a property renovation company.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have a company. We do transportation service. We provide transportation services for the wheelchair-bound individuals.
Okay. So pretty much you are an entrepreneur. You created jobs for other people, correct?
Yes. Over the years, I've had several individuals who work with me in my company. So I was happy and able to not only train folks to be in the workforce, but also provide them with jobs and actually starting on projects from the start to the finish.
Okay. So with that being said, with this level of experience that you had, how long you been doing you say you worked for Nestle for 17 years. How long you been had your own renovation company?
Well, I started out part-time actually, and so it's been for the last 15 years or so. I think I got my first project about 15 years ago, and we've been doing project after project, year after year, ever since.
Okay. So elaborating on that, the renovation company, one of the things that I see in Ward 2 is that everybody's suffering from is the abandoned home situation. There's been, with the Elena DeFries situation, she was found dead in an abandoned home. If you were to be elected to Ward 2 City Council, what would you do as far as in this ward to get rid of these abandoned homes and make them pretty much either livable or bring new homes so people cannot be homeless anymore?
Well, I think we have to look at this problem in two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at it first as what can we say? We have a lot of history here with our housing stock. We have some structures here that's been here over 100 years. So of course, where we can save properties and we can renovate them, we want to actually look to do so. But some of these homes have been vacant for 10 years plus. Some of these homes are having structural problems, damages. They've been stripped. Everything has been taken out of the good has been taken out. The roofs have caved in. The garages are basically non-existent. We have some of these properties that are so in disrepair that to bring it back up to life would require actually more money than the actually house will be actually worth once you finish the renovations. So I think that if we sit down and we do an assessment of properties that we can renovate for a nominal fee, we can do something and we can keep it within a certain budget. I think we have a duty to actually save our housing stock, but sometimes we have to really be realistic and slate some of these properties for the wrecking ball.
Okay, understandable. You know, some of them can, if some of them can't be saved, then of course they need to be torn down rather than be housing for any type of crime. Now, speaking of crime, the councilman that is here now, Zach Reed, who's running for mayor of the city of Cleveland, talks about safety first. That is his slogan. What do you think about safety first? Do we need more police in Ward 2, or do we need more opportunities in Ward 2?
Well, I think you can't solve the problem basically working from one end of the spectrum. You're going to basically have to tweak several different ends of it. Safety first is everybody wants to feel safe in their neighborhood. Everybody wants to feel safe in their home. You know, it's an eerie feeling to invite somebody to your home and make them have a comment about the area is not safe. So just for the pride aspect to live in Union Miles and Slavic Village and Mount Pleasant, the stigma that goes along with it sometimes, I think safety is actually, you do have to consider that first. Because once we can feel safe in our homes, feel safe in our communities, and have our friends and family actually feel safe coming to visit us in our community, I think everything else suffers. Until you get that thing worked out, I think everything will suffer.
Okay. Now, speaking of which, usually Ward 2. Now, what does Ward 2 cover? What areas does it cover?
Well, Ward 2 is a diverse community. We have some great housing stock here. We have a brand new development in the Mill Creek area. We have over 200 brand new homes. Those homes are valued at over, some of them are well over $200,000. So we have a unique, elite neighborhood here in Ward 2. Yet we have neighborhoods that are ridden with poverty. We have neighborhoods that are ridden with crime and abandoned properties. So we have a unique set of variables here in Ward 2. So Ward 2 encompasses the Mill Creek area, which is part of Slavic Village. We have Union Miles. Of course, Union Miles is exactly as it sounds. It's the lower end of Miles. It's a part of Union and everything in between it. And we have Mount Pleasant. We have an area in Ward 2 where we call it Mount Pleasant, and the Corlett area up into the Kinsman area.
Okay. So pretty much you have a diverse Slavic Village, Mount Pleasant, diverse community, diverse areas. Now, as far as the citizens of Ward 2, what is, when you're out here campaigning and knocking on these doors, what is their biggest concern?
Well, I think the biggest concern in the citizens are safety, abandoned houses, crime, economic development, the lack of businesses in our community, the lack of senior services, the lack of our youth programs and activities for our youth.
Okay. So how would you combat that if you were elected?
Well, first we have to attack safety with a broad approach. I think we have to have a mix of police presence. We have to have a mix of citizen patrols, citizen watch groups, block club, communicating and joining one another. I want to create a platform, something like on Facebook. Where we can go in and we can share events that happen in certain communities. So if you live on 114th Street, you can go in and say, my car was broken into last night. and somebody observed the suspect, that was described as blah blah blah. So when you're on that platform, you can say, okay, somebody is breaking into cars over here on East 114th Street. Let's put our cars in our garage. Let's make sure our cars are locked. Let's leave our light on. Let's be vigilant. Let's install cameras in our at our residence. And you can also go on that platform and say, I have a camera installed in my residence, and I observed a male blah 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 or a female blah blah blah, and here's a description of him. Here's a photo shot of him. Does anybody know this person? And we can also link in the police with our platform. So we have better communication as far as safety and what's going on and some of the challenges we are faced as far as safety. So that's one thing that we want to institute in our community. Also, we are looking to create a mini station.
Okay.
And a mini station, and I think one of my constituents brought to the idea of that. Let's put one of our instead of creating a solo mini station, how about we run it through our local development corporation, have an officer station in our local development corporation, where we can go in and we can talk to this officer. We can have meetings with him. He can do community outreach. He can monitor some of our neighborhood cameras that we have installed. So we can also have bike patrols. We can also coordinate with our local mini station officer with bike patrols, and we can have with those bike patrols, we can also have citizens to join into those bike patrols. So we all take part in this thing that we have to solve, and that's safety.
Okay. So pretty much safety is very important, and also economic development. Now, as far as also there's another thing. There's a racial and cultural divide, not just in the city of Cleveland itself, which I see, but because of the elected officials in federal government, there seems to be more of a racial divide. How would you, if you were elected to city council in Ward 2, how would you bring that together?
Well, that's actually a tough question as far as racial divide. A lot of times we choose our friends based on what we look like. So to get people to to open up to other races and to open up to people of other ethnicities, I think you have to bring them into the table. I think you have to bring everybody to the table. You have to kind of set some, you have to find some common goals. You have to find common ground, and you have to work towards that. We all have more in common than what we all may seem to believe. And I think if we bring everybody to the table, we open up the conversation, and we start to talk and we start to understand one another. I think we can come to the conclusion that we all have the same kind of common goals, and we have the same issues that we want solved, no matter what kind of race you come from, or no matter what your ethnicity is.
Okay, so great answer. I would like to say that, commend you on that. Bring everybody to the table so nobody doesn't feel left out. Now, as far as you came on by storm in the primary. It was pretty much everything was tight. The person endorsed by Zach Reed did not make it to the general election. Now the question is that do you have who are you endorsed by, or have you had any endorsements? Anybody you want to say thank you to for right now?
Well, I was just recently endorsed by the Plain Dealer. I think I've been endorsed by the Plain Dealer on the 21st of October, so I was very fortunate to get that endorsement. I'm also endorsed by the Cuyahoga County Women's Democratic Caucus. Okay. I was very lucky to get that endorsement. I want to send out a thank you to that caucus actually for endorsing me. I was endorsed by Cameo. Cameo is a Arab Community Business Association.
Wow.
So I was endorsed by Cameo. I was also endorsed by State Representative John Barnes Jr. Okay. So those are my endorsements, and I've been fortunate to get the endorsement of all all the other city council candidates that was in the race prior to the general election.
Okay.
So 6 other candidates have five other candidates have come on board to endorse me for the general election.
Okay. All right. That's what's up. So what we're gonna do is what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna take a break during this time, and then I will be back within 2 minutes. This is a remote interview, so this will be played this upcoming Monday, October 30th. Headlines at voiceofradio.com. Larry H. Gardner, Kevin L. Bishop, City Council candidate for Ward 2, and we'll be right back.